So for those of you listening, there is an option for chatting, but there's an option to chat to everyone, and I believe there's a pull down that says if you need to chat just to me, I believe you can select me.
Yep,
But
there is. It says organizer or presenter only. I just
okay,
found that.
so I think the default is everybody. So just know that if unless you try to do something special, everybody will see your chat message. So just a warning in case you if you want to say something kind of funny, everybody
You
might.
want to say like Mike is really lame? Don't do that.
Yeah, you can. It's just that everybody will see it. So, all right. So, am I correct in saying we assigned an hour for this, Sharon? That was
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Good. All righty. So we're gonna go ahead and get ready or get going. I mean, so welcome everybody. I appreciate you all making it. I know you're all busy, so we'll get right to it. And I think this will be an interesting webinar. I hope so. I am a little biased because I'm a researcher and I love research, but I'll try to keep it interesting for everybody, even if you're not a researcher. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually announce something that has nothing to do with research, but has to do with just our centers of excellence. And that is our new Hearthstone Institute Forum. So you guys spoke and we listened. You said you would like a way to be able to connect with one another and ask questions or share ideas. So now, if you ever want to be in the forum, it's really easy to do that. You can go to our website. The HearthstoneInstitute.org is our main website. And you would just scroll all the way to the bottom and look for our member login. So that's what's on the screen here. When you do that, before it used to take you right to our file portal, but now you actually have two options. So you can either go to the file portal, or the new option is to go to the Hearthstone Institute forum. So if you would like to go to the forum, that's where you would go. And when you click on that, you're going to see this screen. And you're going to have an option to log in, but you will not have yet signed up for it. So that's actually the first step, is to sign up for the forum. And you have two options, and I highly recommend, if you have a Facebook account, to log in with Facebook. That's going to be on the right-hand side. The main reason I recommend this is that you probably all have a million passwords. I know I do. If you log in with Facebook, you don't have to remember yet another password. So if you click login with Facebook, it'll pop up a window and you will be asked to log in with Facebook and allow Facebook to access the site, and it's going to be a little easier so you don't have to remember a password. But if you don't want to do that or you don't have Facebook, you can click request to join and just follow the prompts to set up your username and login and all that stuff. So that's how it's going to work to register. And just keep in mind, once you either do Facebook or if you do it on, just setting up a new username, we do need to approve your membership. We normally do that really quickly. I'm kind of, you know, uh, you know, stuck on my cell phone all the time, so I get those notices right away, and I'm usually obsessive and I immediately do it. But if I'm busy, I will. It could take up to 1 to 2 business days, so just be a little patient. But if you do it today, I'll probably be able to take care of it this evening, go through all the requests and add you all in. So just be a little patient that we have to approve that. The reason we do that is we don't want anybody in there except for the Centers of Excellence staff. So as I said, we highly recommend that you log in with your Facebook account so you don't have to remember a new username and password. When you log in, once that's all set, you will see our forum. And the forum has 3 sections. Discussions and questions. So that's where if you have a topic you want people to respond to, we have one started about responsive behaviors, that's where you would go. If you have activity ideas, you just want to share some new activity ideas, you can put that there. And then help and support, that's going to be our Hearthstone will be the ones putting things there. So for now, we just have a little video there about how to do Hearthside Book Club in a one-on-one setting. We'll, over time, maybe add some other things. So we really hope you all have a chance to try this out. And it's only going to be as useful as it is like if you use it. So we really encourage you to use it. The more you do, I think the more you're going to learn from one another. So that is the forum. I'll just click on the link here just so you know how this works. When you click on discussions and questions, If there's an existing discussion, you can click on it. So I'm going to do that now. And it's probably a little bit behind, so I'm going to give it a second. So let's say this is a place to discuss responsive behavior. So if you're having difficulty with a resident, post a note here. So I'm just going to say, for instance here, and I'll delete this later, I have a resident who keeps banging the doors shut. Any ideas on what to do? And I could just hit reply. And then people might have some ideas for that. That's actually something that came up in a training in the past. That's why I used that example. Now, the cool thing is when you go to reply, if you have a picture, you can actually upload an image from your computer. Like if you take a picture like, oh, I have an idea for that. Maybe you can put like, somebody mentioned an idea for this. If you have a resident that's banging the doors closed, you could put like a sponge or something, like a small sponge at the end of the door so that it doesn't at least close so loudly, so they can keep doing that, but it won't be so loud. You could like show a picture of what you mean, maybe. Whatever it is, if you have pictures to share, etc. Please, though, be wary of the fact that, we don't want you to share private information or things that you haven't gotten consent from families. That's very, very important to realize. So be very careful in your use of any pictures and so forth. And it is moderated, so if I do see something that we probably shouldn't have shared a picture of a resident because nobody got approval, I might have to like remove that. So it is going to be moderated if things like that happen. So yes, that's for you all to enjoy. So feel free to do that. And if you have any questions about it, you can contact, contact Sharon, and she will probably get a hold of me because I'm the one who knows how to use it mostly. So that's the forum. All right. So the next thing I would like to do is welcome you all, or hopefully you all will be excited to be part of this new alliance we would like to start, or that we are starting today called iShare. So besides being a research webinar, we are also considering this webinar the start of this alliance. And so iShare is what we're calling it. It's the I'm Still Here Alliance for Research and Engagement. So this webinar is a kickoff meeting for iShare. And it's going to be an alliance that's exclusively available to our centers of excellence. And what we're hoping is that you all have a commitment to be part of this alliance, and you'll get to see what exactly it is. In a moment, I'll describe what the benefits are and what's involved. And the nice thing is, if you are part of this alliance, you can advertise being part of the alliance. And over time, we're hoping to publish the results of the different research that we're doing. And that can be used to market your residences. So we're starting off this alliance. We hope that all of you are willing to be part of it, and it's going to benefit everybody. So what exactly is this alliance going to involve? So what's involved in being part of the alliance? So first is we would hope that you guys could collect and share with Hearthstone any new data on the impact of your programs. And that would involve using the methods that we're going to discuss today. And you can do this in a variety of ways. One is if you have staff that already do assessments or periodic assessments with residents, maybe a quarterly basis, you can just sort of implement some of the measures we're going to discuss today as part of that with your existing staff resources. So some of you may already have the ability to do that with your existing staff resources. If that's not the case, you could try to find volunteer researchers from local colleges. There's often programs where people have to get experience on the floor with various populations. So you could try to find help that way. You could write a grant to pay for a new staff researcher, and we would part of the alliance would be Hearthstone helping you to write the grant. Or you could also, a final option would be to hire Hearthstone to collect the data. So any of the data that you collect would be kept completely confidential by the Institute Research Group. Only summary data would be shared with other centers of excellence. So if we, for instance, we might release a report on quality of life, and that maybe we find that centers of excellence that are newly trained or that have embedding visits, that there's an increase in quality of life for the residents. Maybe we find that out. So we would share just the summary data on that. We wouldn't say that one of your residents particularly improved, or even that your particular residents had necessarily the improvement. We would keep it sort of summary data. We would have non-identifying summary data presented to publications. It's important to know, the membership in this is voluntary, but benefits would accrue to everybody. So we would love for you all to have a commitment to being part of this. And the other part of doing this alliance would be not just sharing new data that you collect on things that we'll discuss today, but sharing with Hearthstone existing data. Like if some of you are skilled nursing facilities, so if you have MDS data or census data, also to share that, and we can analyze all of the data together for all of our residences that are part of the Centers of Excellence to see the impacts it's had over time. Another part of this would be agreeing to serve as a research site for future studies. We're actually always doing new research. In fact, right now, the reason I am in California is we're starting a new study on special signage for people with dementia, sort of high-tech signage. And we're looking to the future about that grant, and we're going to need new sites, and we would love to have some of you be part of those studies. And so as part of that process, we would love to have letters of support so that when we write grants to whether it's NIH or the Gates Foundation, we can say we have all these residences that are excited and interested in doing research. Another part of the alliance would be sharing ideas for research projects. And we can collectively then apply, this alliance can then apply to grants that would benefit all the centers of excellence. And one of the main areas that we've been looking into, the Gates Foundation is now having some funding to do various types of projects related to Alzheimer's, not just for the cure or drugs. And so we are looking into that, and this alliance could be a way to connect into the Gates Foundation and do some research that way. So what would Hearthstone Institute provide? So what would we do on our end? So you would send us hopefully whatever data you might have available, that data that you collect. We would analyze the data and share with the Centers of Excellence by creating reports that are kind of easy to understand. We'd provide assistance with the data collection process. So if you have questions about anything we're going to discuss today or future things that come up, we're here as a resource to help you. We'd assist you with grant writing if you want to find funding for a new research staff member. And as I said, we would write grants that would hopefully benefit all of us in doing research on new things. So, we're committed at Hearthstone to always being part of the cutting edge of research and development for Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. We'd like you all to be part of that process too. And so that's what we're starting today with the iShare Alliance. So part of the benefit of having an alliance like this is that we have strength in numbers. Right now at Hearthstone, we are one of the best funded small businesses, or really the best funded small business when it comes to small business innovation research, SBIR research. We are always getting new funding that way, but we'd love for you all to be part of this too, so we can even expand even further. So just an idea of what we have collectively in the Centers of Excellence. We have 25 Centers of Excellence. We kind of just recently looked at all of this information to see where we stand. Most of those are assisted living with specialized memory care. Some of you listening today might be part of skilled nursing facilities with memory care, but in fact, most of you also have multiple levels of care. So you are assisted living and senior living apartments, or you might have a nursing home and assisted living. You might be a full-fledged CCRC. So most of you all have multiple levels of care. So we have, if we add up, and this is a very, very conservative estimate, 600 residents across all of the Centers of Excellence living with memory loss. And that's an amazing thing as we apply for big grants on behalf of the Centers of Excellence in this alliance, to say that we have 600 residents, and that's, like I said, a very conservative estimate, to work with across all these 12 different states. That's quite a story to tell funders in doing new research. So yes, there's when we count it all up, there's 12 different states that you are all from. And if you look at from east to west, that's 3,200 miles east to west, and north to south, about 1,100 miles. So we have a huge geographic area, which is also important, because just because something works at Hearthstone, or just because something works in Louisiana, doesn't mean it's going to work in Minnesota or in Pennsylvania. So to say that we're going to do research in various geographic areas also gives us sort of a leg up on any other places that are looking to do research. So we'd love you all to be a part of this alliance and to be involved in future research. So that being said, one of the aspects of the alliance that we would like you to be part of is new data collection. So what we've spent some time doing since our meeting in the fall was trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys to collect data on your residents, and so that we can track the impact that some of the programs have. So I'm going to go through now what we've put together for you guys to help look at the impact of the programs. And one thing to keep in mind, and this Sharon I'm sure is going to share all of the PowerPoint with you all, because there's some people who unfortunately can't be here, but if you're ever trying to find these data collection forms, we've created a very simple web address to get to them. It's just hearthstoneforms.com. So if you're wanting to do, some of you might want to do data collection on your tablet computers, or if you're looking to go print them, all you need to remember is hearthstoneforms.com. And that you will be prompted to log into FileCamp at that point, but at least it's easy to remember. But if you don't remember that web address, you can always just go to FileCamp, and all of these files are located in FileCamp in the research tools section. So the forms I'm going to talk about today, they're all available to you electronically, or you can use hard copies. So it depends on if you're a person who likes to have pen and paper in front of you, or if you're a person who does everything possible electronically. I'm more of an electronic person, but I have a feeling a lot of you might be more comfortable with pen and paper. So you do have an option here. If you decide to use pen and paper, just keep in mind, if you do want to share that information with us, we would need for you to scan and email or fax the forms to us. If you fill out the forms electronically, there's an easy way to send them via email. So that's sort of one of the benefits of doing it electronically. So one of the most basic pieces of data that we would like you all to share with us, this would be a monthly process that you would do ideally on the first day of each month, or at least a consistent day every month. And it's very, very simple. All we would be asking for this part is to, and I'll click on this form so you can see it a little bit better. You would fill out a form that says, what residence are you in? And we have some short codes for you guys for your residences, so it's a very short phrase that you would put there. What date are you filling out the form? And what are the staff initials? So who's filling out the form? That's basically in case we have questions. And all you would fill out is your current memory care census, the number of falls in the past month, and the number of residents taking any antipsychotics in the past month. And that's the reason we're looking at these data. Are some of the research we've done at Hearthstone is that the fall rate is very, very low at Hearthstone. And there are some published standards out there that we've compared to, and ours is quite low. But we're very interested to see overall at the Centers of Excellence, how is our fall rate? And are we much better than average? Is it getting better when there's embedding visits and so forth? So, and then also antipsychotics. Obviously, I think you all hopefully know that using antipsychotics is not recommended, and so we're hoping that the rate is relatively low. And this way of documenting it, noting any residents that are taking antipsychotics in the past month, including PRN, that's kind of the standard way that people document this in the literature. So that's why we're using that. So this is a very simple thing. This will, we'll do some calculations on our end to come up with the exact percentages and so forth. But this is a pretty basic information. And if we have this information from all the Centers of Excellence, it'd be quite an interesting thing to share with all the Centers of Excellence. So that's chart review data. This would ideally be done, as I said, once per month, ideally on the first day of each month, and essentially looking back on the last month. But the current memory care census, that what you would use is that day that you're filling out the form, what is the current census on that date? So we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. Now here's just a sample completed form. So for instance, this is EDG is going to be Edgewood's short title. So we'll know that EDG stands for Edgewood. And like 11118 initials was MS. Again, this is all just sample. This is not real data. And then maybe the census was 12 and the number of falls was 5 and there were 5 people taking antipsychotics. So that's all that this would involve. And you can do it either electronically or hard copy. So if you have any questions, let me see. I'm going to just take a quick look at the chat. If you have questions, let me know. I can also unmute people if they want to ask any questions. I will give people a second to type, or there's a way to digitally raise your hand too. So it looks like nobody has questions, but I will kind of keep an eye on that in case people do. The next thing is direct resident interviews. And so we had some conversations at Hearthstone about what are the simplest measures to collect and the most important ones. So we've decided in terms of direct resident interviews, the things that we want to track are depression and quality of life. And so we have some very simple forms to fill out. It's essentially like 28 questions that you would ask each resident. And what we'd like for long term, it would be great to do these within 30 days of move-in, or even better, if you are going out into the community and meeting with residents before they move in, that's an even better time to collect the data because it's before they've actually received any of your care. And then generally we recommend every 6 months thereafter or biannually. And then also if there's a change of status. So if you already have a process to do these, if you're already doing something biannually, hopefully, slipping this in wouldn't add too much time. As I said, it's only about 28 questions. So here is the form, and what you would do is you would put in the residence that you're at, an ID, and we'll actually show you guys a simple way to keep track of that. We're trying to provide everything you guys would need to do this. And the date of the interview, that would be pretty simple, whatever day you're doing it. The staff initials, and then what type of interview is it? Is it a move-in, an annual, a change of status, or something else? Maybe there's some other reason you're doing an assessment at that point. And then you would be looking at what's called the geriatric depression scale. And it's just 15 questions that you would ask the resident. Are you basically satisfied with your life? Have you dropped many of your activities and interests? And these are just yes/no questions. And that's part of the reason we chose this measure, is that they are binary, very simple yes/no questions. I know Abe's Garden is there, and you guys are all familiar with many other scales. And this was the one we decided was probably the simplest for people who are not familiar with doing assessments, and other research measures would be easiest to do. And at the bottom here, there is a way to calculate totals. You would just need to count up the number of ones. However, if you are not a person who enjoys math and you don't want to do that, we can do all of that. The most important thing for you guys to do if you collect these data is to just check the checkbox that the person says. So if they say yes or no, just check that off, or circle it if you're using the hard copy, and we can always do the calculation later. But the idea would be, if you calculate it, you would just calculate all the yeses, all the column A totals and all the column B. And then those two together would come up with the total score overall. And the way that the geriatric depression scale works is a score above 5 suggests that the person's depressed. The idea of this is not to officially diagnose somebody with clinical depression, but it is used in a lot of research to look at, magnitude of depression and the percentage of people that might have depression at a particular place. So that's one of them. The other is quality of life. And this one we picked a very simple 13-point scale. And as you can see, they recommend that you say up front, I want to ask you some questions about your quality of life, and have you rate different aspects of your life using one of 4 words: poor, fair, good, or excellent. So when you think about your life, there are different aspects like your physical health, energy, family, money, and others. I'm going to ask you to rate each of these areas, and we want to find out how you feel about your current situation in each area. If you're not sure about an item, you can ask me about it. So, basically you would ask the person about physical health. How do you feel about this? Do you feel poor, fair, good, or excellent? And so whatever the person says, you would just use that checkbox or circle the item if you're using the hard copy. And if you would like to add everything up, the overall total would go on the bottom. And, I apologize, there's a third one. I forgot. Yes, we decided kind of towards the end of this process that an important thing is to know the mental status. And I think all of us would agree nobody loves giving mental status tests to people. But after a lot of conversation, we decided there needs to be some way to know, approximately the level of dementia that people are in that are being assessed, because we all work with very different populations. Some of you might have mostly early stage, some might be mostly late. So we need some sort of a way to determine mental status. So the brief interview for mental status, the BIMS, is probably the simplest one to do. And this one's really, compared to the other options, is pretty straightforward and simple. So what you would say to the resident, I'm going to say 3 words for you to remember. Please repeat the words after I have said all 3. The words are sock, blue, and bed. Now tell me the 3 words. And I put a place here where you can, if you're live doing this with the resident, you can actually write or type what the person actually says. So let's say, I'm just going to type it in here, that I'm assessing Sharon, let's say, and we know Sharon has some memory issues. So she said sock, she said Red Sox, and then she said Cleveland Indians. All right. So Sharon's apparently having a little bit of short-term memory difficulty. And what you would do is, okay, what were the actual words said and how many did she get right? She got 1 right. So I would put a 1 there. And then you may repeat those words up to 2 more times, okay? Now you would then ask the resident to please tell me what year it is right now. So maybe Sharon would say that it is 2014, okay? Oops. So Sharon said it's 2014. And so you would code this one. Did she miss it by greater than 5 years? Or there was no answer. That's not the case here. Did she miss it by 2 to 5 years? And that's what we have here. Did she miss it by 1 year? Or was it correct? And so you can see that depending on what the person says, they get more points. So if she would have gotten totally correct, they would have gotten 3. Now let's say I ask Sharon, what month are we in right now? And she says we are in the month of, let's just say June, right? She says June. So did she miss it by greater than 1 month? Yeah, that's pretty far off. So she doesn't unfortunately get any points there for that one. But if the person missed it 6 days, 6 days to a month, they would get 1 point. If they get accurate within 5 days, they get 2. The next is what day of the week is it? So let's say Sharon answers that today is Saturday. So this one, there's really only 2 options. Either it's incorrect or correct. So in this case, it's incorrect. So then we go back to the sock blue bed, if you recall. So you would say to the resident, let's go back to an earlier question. What were those 3 words that I asked you to repeat? And let's say she is able to remember, she can't remember any of them, but you can give them a clue. And it says here, if they are unable to remember a word, give a cue, something to wear. So let's say I say, oh, I know you can't think of it, but it's something that you would wear. And she says, okay, it's a sock. And I would put like that she needed a prompt just so I remember for later when I'm scoring it. But she would get a 1 there because we prompted her. And then let's just say she can't, even after prompting, she's unable to get the other ones. She can't get bed and she can't get blue. So all you would do then is total up, oops, not 90, that would be a 0. You would just total it up. And in this case, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3. So a 3 on the BIMS. And as you can see, there is levels of impairment that are sort of standardized with this measure. And she would fall under severe impairment. So that's the basic idea of the BIMS. And it's, as I said, none of us like to do these memory tests because we know we're specifically testing things that the people have difficulty with. but out of the options, this is really one of the better ones. So any questions about that? I'm just going to kind of look at the chat window. Nothing at this point, it looks like. All right. I'm going to go on to the next thing. So the final piece of data that we would like to collect on, and this would be on each resident, but the data is obtained through a caregiver interview. So with this, you would be, let's say there's a resident, Martha, that you've done the BIMS with, you've done the quality of life scale, and you've done the geriatric depression scale. So in addition, we want to do a caregiver interview with somebody who provides care or knows that person very closely. And we want to get some information about that person from something called the Neuropsychiatric Inventory Nursing Home. And this would be done at the same time period that you would do the direct resident interview, ideally within 30 days of move-in. As I said with the other one, same thing, every 6 months or biannually after that, or a change of status. And again, you want to try to do this at the same time as you're doing the direct resident interviews. And so what is the Neuropsychiatric Inventory? So it's pretty straightforward. Again, you would fill out your residence, the ID, who are you interviewing? You can just put initials there. What date was the interview? What were the staff initials? For the person filling out the form, that's what the staff initials there stand for. And then which type of interview is it? And then what you're going to do is ask the person, okay, does Martha have delusions? Yes or no? And you're going to, maybe she says yes, okay? You're then going to ask Martha to rank the frequency and severity. And there's a key on the next page that hopefully over time when you do this, you'll kind of remember. And so the way it works with frequency, the number 1 stands for occasionally, and that's like less than once a week. Often would be about once a week. And then frequently or several times per week, but less than every day would be a 3. And 4 would be very frequently, once or more per day. So let's say in this case that when I ask about Martha just, it's very rare, so it's just less than once a week. So the frequency is a 1. The second question then is how severe is it? And this one, the options are mild, that means it's noticeable. Moderate would be significant, but not a dramatic issue. And then severe, it's very marked, a dramatic issue for the person. So let's say she says it's a very mild issue. She has a delusion that, she's still going to school or something, but it doesn't really cause major issues, so it's very mild. And then let's say that Martha doesn't have any hallucinations. So in that case, you would just say no, and then you don't have to fill out the rest of it. Let's say we get to agitation. Let's say that again is a yes, that she is agitated. And let's say in this case, she says, this happens quite a bit, like pretty much every day. So Martha, very frequently, I think that would fall under once or more per day. So that would be a 4 is how you would code that one. And then severity, maybe the person said this is a major issue. Every time it happens, 3 staff have to come over and help the person. So we're talking about a really bad severity. That would be a 3. And so you would go through the rest of these in a similar way. Now, some of these, if you're not familiar what they are, so on the second page here is a definition of each item. So just I'll kind of remind you guys if you're not familiar with these. So delusions, again, this is about beliefs that the person has, that somebody might be harming them, that others are stealing for them, that family members are not who they say they are. So again, this is about beliefs. So that's what delusions are. Hallucinations are related to your senses, like hearing or seeing something that might not be there, or experiencing things that are not present. So these are experiences, again, seeing or hearing things. So that's the difference. Delusions are beliefs, hallucinations are seeing or hearing things or experiencing things. Agitation. So the way this is defined, the patient has periods of verbal or physical agitation or aggression. Behaviors include screaming, temper outbursts, swearing, repeated calling out, pushing, biting, hitting, scratching, etc. So I think, unfortunately, we probably all have seen these sorts of things. So that's what agitation and aggression, they both fall into this category. Depression, the patient seems sad or in low spirits. Say that they feel sad or depressed, they cry, okay? And then anxiety, the patient's very nervous, worried, or frightened for no apparent reason. They're very tense or fidgety. Now, apathy, sometimes people get that confused with depression. And so apathy is more like, the word indifference is a good word to use there. The patient just seems less interested in the world around them. They're just not motivated. They just simply don't care. Difficult to engage in conversation. So there is a difference there. Depression is being sad, having very low spirits, whereas apathy is just not seeming to care, having no interest in the world. Irritability, the patient gets irritated and easily disturbed, or their moods are changeable, being impatient and cranky. Elation and euphoria, you may have had residents, I know I've worked with, where they're extremely good mood, like just unusual, and it's not normal, and it's an excessive amount of happiness. That's what we're talking about here with elation or euphoria. Disinhibition is the patient acting impulsively, doing things that are not usually done or said in public, so just things that just aren't socially appropriate, very inappropriate. Talking to strangers as if they know them. I apologize, my email's popping up. Close that out. Aberrant motor behavior, the patient engages in repetitive actions such as pacing or doing things repeatedly, opening closets or drawers over and over again, constantly picking up their clothes, tapping fingers. I had a resident that would tap the table really loudly over and over again. That would fall under this. Sleeping, and this is sleep issues is what we're talking about here. Having difficulty sleeping, wandering at night, awakening during the night, rising too early, taking excessive amount of naps, like the person just wants to be in bed all day and sleeps all day. Appetite and eating disorders, and so that would be a change in appetite or eating habits, and that would include losing or gaining significant weight recently. So this is all the neuropsychiatric inventory. And so now there is a part to this. If you want to go and score it for us, you can. But again, it is optional. So the way this works, for those of you who are excited about numbers like me, you would actually multiply frequency times severity to come up with a number. So in this case, the delusions, you do 1 times 1, and that means the score there is a 1. Anytime there's a no, like hallucinations, you just put a 0 because there's nothing to calculate there. And then for agitation, this is an example. So frequency times severity, you multiply 4 times 3, you come up with 12. And so that's how this one works. Again, this part is optional. If you don't have time or don't want to fill this in, that's totally fine. And there is a way, though, if you do that, to come up with a total score, and it's out of 144. So that is the neuropsychiatric inventory. And again, all of this can be done either hard copy or electronically. The final form is what we're calling our activity observation form. So this one is mostly going to be useful for activity staff, or anytime maybe you have a new program that you want to just find out how engaging is this program. Maybe you're starting a new theater program or a new music program or whatever. You want to know how engaging it is. This can be a very useful scale. We tried to make it as simple as possible to do. Some of you may have in the past been trained on something called the Menora Park Engagement Scale. That's something we use in our research, and a lot of this is based on that, but it's made to be a much simpler thing to do. You can sit down and collect a bunch of data in a short amount of time very easily on a lot of residents. So what exactly is this? Okay. So the way this works, let's say you guys have a new drama club that you're starting, and you decided, some of you have been trained on scripted improv. You want to do an assessment. You want to see how engaging this group is, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to need a person to observe the activity taking place. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You need someone kind of sitting off to the side observing this in a place that's not going to really be noticeable to residents. And what you're going to do is first, as it says here, you're going to write down the time of each observation. So let's say right now it's 12:12. Well, I'm on Pacific time, so it's 12:12 on my time. And then what I'm going to do, let's say that there's 7 residents in this drama club. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at each resident for just 3 seconds. So resident number 1, it doesn't even matter what their name is, okay? But I'm just going to look at them, and I'm going to look at the resident for 3 seconds. And I'm going to decide during that time, for most of the observation, was the person not engaged, non-engagement, were they asleep? So you look at that person for 3 seconds. Were they asleep? If so, we have a 0 associated with that. And this is something hopefully over time you get very used to. Were they exhibiting something we call distracted engagement? So in other words, maybe they're in the drama club, but they're looking at what's going on in the other room because there's a television show on, and they're looking at that. So that would be doing something other than the activity. So if when you look at them, they're doing that, then you would code a 1. On the other hand, if they're passive, let's say they're in the drama club and they're just kind of watching the staff member talk. That's what we call passive engagement. We're going to give that a 2. That's what that's going to be coded as. So passive is listening or watching. On the other hand, let's say you look at somebody and they're actually acting out a scene. They're moving around, they're doing things. That's active engagement, doing or commenting on an activity. And so we're going to give that a 3. Now it's possible that you look at the person during that 3 seconds and they're doing more than one. What you want to do is code the one that happened the longest time. So if they're like briefly have their eyes closed at the very beginning, but then they open them, then that would be passive engagement because their eyes were open for most of those 3 seconds. If it's hard to tell, they're all about the same. Let's say their eyes were closed for about half of the time and then they open them for half the time, you would pick the one with the higher number. So in that case, you would say that, okay, it was a 2 because it was about the same. So going back to the top here, so let's say you look at person number 1. We'll use Martha as an example, but it doesn't matter what the person's name is. You're just looking at resident 1 in that group. Let's say that that person, Martha, was asleep. So I'm going to put a 0 there. And then resident number 2 I look at, again, it doesn't matter what their name is. Let's just say their name is Steve. I look at them and they are acting out a scene. Okay, so they're doing the drama club. They're actually doing commenting. If I need to look down, that's a 3. So I put a 3 there. I look at the next person. Maybe I don't even know that person's name, but I look at them and you know what? They're asleep too. Oh boy. I look at resident number 4 and they're watching the other person. So if I'm not sure what number that was, I can look down. That's passive, that's a 2. I look at the next person. Again, I'm not sure what their name is, but I know that that when I look at them, they're actually just paying attention. Again, their eyes are open, they're paying attention. Resident 6, I look at, and they're actually acting it out with that other person. So they're doing commenting, and that's going to be a 3. And then let's say I look at resident 7. Resident 7 is also, let's say, asleep, and that's a 0. And so I have now started at 12:12, and I looked at 7 residents, each of which I looked at for 3 seconds. And I now have some information about how engaged this entire group is. And even just kind of looking at it, you know, glancing at it right now, it looks like 3 of these people aren't very engaged and the other people are. So at a base level, this is all you need to fill out. Now, I'll show you ways to fill out some more stuff where it'll actually, if you're using the electronic version, you'll actually get like automated scoring and stuff, which is only exciting probably to me because I love research. But let's say we've done that 12:12 look at the residents. All right, we have to step away for a little bit. I have to go fill out some paperwork, but I come back into the room and it's 12:17 and they're still doing the drama club. And what you want to do each time you do this is kind of randomly go in a different order each time. And you can even do eeny, meeny, miny, mo to pick the order that you're going to go in. So this time I'm going to look in maybe a different order at the residents. So the first person I look at, they are now engaged. They're actually acting out in the scene. That's a 3. And this, the next person I look at, they're singing along with what the person's saying. They're a 3. I look at the next person and they're just listening, watching. That's a 2. I look at the next person, they're asleep. That's a 0. And the next person is just watching. That's a 2. The next person is doing commenting. That's a 3. and there is the last person or the next person's asleep. Now let's say someone else showed up in there. Okay, now there's an 8th resident. So that person I look at, and there are 2 because they were just listening, watching. So I now have some information about that. And so this is the idea of what you would do. You just look at the residents one at a time for 3 seconds, and each time you look at them, you can see like what are they doing during that time, and you simply give it a code. You might do this a few times. You know, you might do it again at 12:22, and then you fill out what you see at that time. And so you're then able to get, let's say over the course of an hour, you get about 10 of these observations. That really gives you a clear picture of what the activity is like. Now, for those of you who might be interested in like what this is like when you have automated scoring, I have one here that's already filled out, and I'll show you what it's capable of doing if you use the electronic version. So in this example, this is a fake example again, it's not real, but I was observing Hearthside Book Club. I just put HBC for Hearthside Book Club, and there were 8 residents in the group. And so what we want you to fill out for this is the engagement levels, and then also the number of residents that you observed in that. And I just realized this one is not automatically calculating. So I'll actually show you live how this works, I guess. So let me just click on this. So going back here, I'm just going to kind of make up some numbers here, guys, really quick. So just give me a moment. Oops, not a 4. I'm sorry, I'm using numbers that don't even exist. So 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2. Okay, so I filled out let's just say I only had time. It was I didn't have a lot of time, but I did an observation at 12:12. I did another one at 12:20. I did an observation at 12:30, and then again at 12:40. All right. And what this will do is if you put in, okay, so I observed 7 residents. So you just have to put that in there. I observed 7 residents again, because the reason I know that is that's how far this goes. 7 again and 7 again. So the way this will work, it's capable of doing, is calculating an average for each of those times. And so if you use the electronic version, there are some automatic calculations that occur. And when you send it to us, then we are able to actually calculate an overall mean for that activity. And so this will be helpful, like sort of long-term, knowing if activities are being are engaging. So that's what this observation form is like. But again, at a base level, all that you would need to fill out for this are the items sort of on the left side here, the time of the observation, and these numbers that are here. So there's that one. Any questions on that? Oh, good question. So we had a question here. Did the quality of life measure have a specific name? Yes, it does. It has the very creative name of quality of life Alzheimer's disease. That's what it's called. And so if you search QOL-AD, you'll see a decent amount of literature about that. It's been around for quite a while. There are, okay, just like all the other measures, there's lots of other measures out there for quality of life. There's ones that even we kind of like better for research, like studies, but they're so long that we wanted to give you guys something very simple. So that's kind of why we picked that. We wanted to make it easy for you guys because you guys are not researchers necessarily. We wanted something that anybody could pick up and learn pretty easily. Any other questions so far? Doesn't look like it yet. Okay, so that is the engagement scale. So let's say you filled out any of these forms. Let's say you filled out the chart review data or an engagement scale form, whatever it might be. You would send it to research@thehearth.org, or you can fax it to that number there, the 216-820-4377. So for those of you who want to do this on your tablets, I have a little bit of information here. So the first thing, if you want to do this on an iPad or Android tablet, the first thing you need to just do is download a free app, which is the Adobe Acrobat Reader app. You may already have it on your device. A lot of people do, but that's the first step. Download it, or make sure you already have it if you're pretty sure you do. So that's step one. Make sure you have that file. Then you can just go to FileCamp by going to our easy to remember address, hearthstoneforms.com, and that'll take you directly to the forms that are available for the data collection. And we always recommend that you go to that website each time you're going to do any data collection and get a new copy of that form. And so let's say you're doing an assessment. What you would do is download then the direct resident assessment form, which is kind of clearly marked with the name of it. So you would download the form and you would open them with Adobe Acrobat on your tablet, and you can then fill out the form. It's really easy to do. There's those check boxes. You just select what you need to or type in the numbers you need and fill it out. And then simply all you do when you're done, you just send it to Research at the Hearth. And it's also a good idea to copy yourself on the email so that you have a copy of it too. One thing to be aware of, if you do this, you're going to be given there's going to be a box that opens up that says, do you want to send it as an original document or a flattened document? It doesn't matter which one you do, so don't worry about that. You can select either one and it'll work just fine. But just want to let you know when you go to send the email, it's going to say that. It's going to send, you want to send an original or flattened, and it doesn't matter either way. If at any point you're having trouble, you can contact us at researchatthehearth.org, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So this again is going to be in your PowerPoint, but just so that you don't have to write in your full name of your residence, we're using 3-letter abbreviations for all of you, and we've assigned those ahead of time. So, you know, don't get too caught up in all of these. All you need to know is your particular residence. Like Abe's Garden, we've done AGN, and then, for instance, the Cohen home is TCH. We've tried to make it, whenever possible, obvious, but there, you know, since we're only dealing with 3 letters, we sometimes had to be a little bit creative in how we did the 3-letter code. So those will be available when Sharon sends this out. But if you do see your residence, you could always write down what yours is. And so one thing that's really important is to use ID numbers. We do not want to know residents' actual names. And so you're going to keep track of ID numbers on your own. If you're, you know, first of all, we hope you can do this, but if you do this, we want you to keep track of your own ID numbers. So the ID numbers, for instance, if it's Willow Falls, it would be WFS- 10001 is maybe George Carlin, and WFS 10002 is Ally McBeal, or, you know, I'm putting silly names here, but you want to have your own code of the different numbers that are associated with your residence. And so I have spreadsheets all ready for you guys if you want to use them in FileCamp. And so, hold on one second. Let me go back one slide. So Willow Falls, I've already pre-created something that you guys can use so you don't have to create it. And it has, you know, the ID number, and all you need to know is, like, put in the person's name that you're going to give 1001 and put in the person's name for 1002. So all of this is already available for you and ready to go. So the last thing I just want to do is, again, show you on FileCamp where these files are, what they kind of look like. So give me a second here. Oops, apparently I don't know my own password. Oops. Okay, I see a question from Martha that I'll get to in just a moment. So what's going to happen, if you go to hearthstoneforms.com, it's going to take you directly to this page. And it's going to be, you know, clearly labeled chart review form, participant interview, resident interview form, caregiver interview form, and activity observation form. So that's all going to be clearly labeled. Now, that's the forms thing. And just so you know, if you go back a level to the research tools, then you'll see that we have the data collection forms in there. That's one folder within the overall research tools thing. Then we have participant spreadsheets. That's where you would go to get your particular resident's ID numbers. And then if you go back again, there's also miscellaneous resources. There, we're going to upload the PowerPoint, so it's always available there. And any other sort of miscellaneous stuff will go in there. So again, this is in a folder called Research Tools. And if you currently don't have access to that, I will talk to Sharon and we'll make sure you get access. So I see two comments. One is that Sharon wants me to make sure, and good point, Sharon, we call, I use the word FileCamp. That's the company that makes our I Am Still Here portal. So the term that we actually use, the I'm Still Here portal, that's where you get all your files and stuff. I was calling that FileCamp, but it's the I'm Still Here portal. So all these files are in the I'm Still Here portal. So the next is Martha had a question that JAA has 4 different memory care centers of excellence. Very good point. So I will contact Martha separately, privately, sort of about that, or Sharon will. And yet you're right, we probably should separate you guys. It'll be a little easier for it to be done that way. Some of the rest of you also, if you have multiple places that you might be collecting data within the same location, we can talk to you guys about assigning IDs in a different way. So if you have any questions about that, I will be happy to kind of deal with it on a case-by-case basis and make it as easy as possible for you guys. So any questions about that, you just let me know. So Martha, we will contact you privately about that. Any other final questions? I'm going to unmute everybody. So if you guys are laughing, yelling, or whatever, take a break from that. And I just want to give everybody a chance one last time to just like say something if they have a question that they want to verbally express. So I'm going to unmute right now. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, now I did. Okay. Any questions that you guys want to verbally bring up? Nope. I hear crickets, as in nothing. So, all right. I think that's it for today. Sharon, did you have any other final comments or anything you wanted to say?
First of all, thank you. That was awesome. I hope everybody enjoyed that. And second of all, I'm going to be, I will email everybody with instructions on how to access the PowerPoint, as well as the whole presentation was recorded. So if there's somebody that you want to see it that was not able to be here, we'll be sending you instructions for that as well. And lastly, if you have any ideas for our next webinar, which we, the target was from our conference that we would do this quarterly, so topics you'd like to see would be welcome, and we'll start to work on those.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It was good to talk to you all virtually. Somebody's got a phone call, very busy day, I'm sure. So I'm sure you all have things to get back to. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch with all of you.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.